So your greatest professional strength, like the exact trait that got you promoted, earned you praise, and basically built your entire career up to this point, is statistically the most likely thing to completely destroy your team.
Yeah, it is, I mean, the ultimate professional paradox. We spend our entire lives sharpening this one specific edge, only to realize that, that very same edge is quietly cutting the ground right out from under us.
Which is just such a wild concept to wrap your head around, because normally when things break down, there's a comforting logic to it, right? Think about your car. The check engine light comes on, you plug in a diagnostic tool, and it spits out a code.
Right, like P0420 or something.
Exactly. Bad catalytic converter, it's entirely binary, you swap the part, the problem is solved, and you're back on the road.
And we naturally crave that kind of visible mechanical causality in all areas of life. We just want a clear-cut diagnosis.
But then you step into the world of human communication and leadership, and suddenly that diagnostic machine is just completely useless. I mean, when a team's productivity inexplicably plummets, or a brilliant manager's credibility seemingly evaporates in the middle of a pitch, there is no error code.
No, not at all. We're looking at a behavioral landscape that is incredibly murky. It is, well, the definition of diagnostic muddy waters. The mechanisms causing the breakdown are almost always invisible to the naked eye.
And that is exactly why we are here today. Welcome to this custom deep dive tailored specifically for you. We are pulling together a massive stack of research spanning linguistics, psychology, anthropology, and business management to decode the hidden mechanics of human communication.
It's going to be a fascinating journey.
It really is. Our mission for this deep dive is to uncover how the things you don't say, or accidentally say, are actively shaping your success, and why your greatest strength might be a hidden liability.
I am so thrilled to be walking through this with you, because to really understand leadership and influence and why things break down, we can't start at the macro level of corporate strategy. We have to zoom all the way in to the microscopic level.
Right down to the granular stuff.
Exactly. We have to look at the literal, tiny words we choose the very moment we open our mouths.
Yes, absolutely. Before we can analyze how we command a room, we have to look at the almost invisible words we use that, frankly, actively sabotage our authority.
Yeah, the tiny verbal habits we don't even notice.
Take the apology trap. I mean, we've all seen someone who apologizes for absolutely everything, even things totally outside their control.
Oh, constantly.
It's often rooted in a baseline of low self-esteem, anxiety, or this suffocating brand of perfectionism where any deviation from flawless is internalized as a personal fault.
What's fascinating here is the psychological loop that behavior creates. When you constantly apologize for simply occupying space or, for a minor delay, you aren't just broadcasting a lack of confidence to the room.
You're internalizing it.
You are actively internalizing that belief yourself. Every single "I'm sorry" reinforces a negative self-perception, digging the groove of self-doubt a little deeper into your own brain.
So the behavioral strategy here is surprisingly simple, but just incredibly potent. Instead of apologizing, you practice gratitude.
I love this reframing.
Right. So instead of walking into a meeting and saying, "Sorry, I'm late," which completely centers your failure, you reframe it entirely. You say, "Thank you for your patience."
Which centers their grace.
Exactly.
It shifts the entire dynamic of the room in an instant. You move from a position of self-deprecation to a position of appreciating the other person's flexibility. You haven't diminished yourself, but you still acknowledge the situation politely.
But overt apologies are really just the loudest version of this, right? The stealthier version is how we systematically dilute our own sentences before we even finish them. We use linguistic hedges.
Oh, yes. The safety nets.
Yeah, these are words or phrases that introduce ambiguity or caution into our statements. Things like, "I'm not an expert, but," or "loosely speaking," or even just throwing the word "really" or just into a sentence to soften the impact.
Linguists actually refer to this as epistemic modality. It sounds highly technical, but it's simply a tool speakers use to signal a level of caution in their assertion.
Like fuzzy language.
Yeah, exactly. It acts as an ego protection mechanism.
Yeah.
You hedge your statement so that if you turn out to be wrong, well, you have a built-in escape hatch. You never claimed it as absolute undeniable fact, so you can't be held fully accountable for the failure.
Using hedges is like putting a bumper sticker on a Ferrari that says "student driver." You're artificially lowering everyone's expectations before you even hit the gas.
That is a fantastic analogy. You are literally giving yourself permission to crash the car.
But, I mean, I want to push back on this a little bit. Isn't a little hedging just being polite? Nobody likes an aggressive know-it-all who deals purely in absolutes.
That's a very fair point.
Sometimes you want to soften a critique so you don't completely alienate your team or come across as arrogant.
Well, this raises an important question about where we draw the line between politeness and passivity. If we categorize communication into the four established styles, passive-aggressive, and assertive-heavy hedging fall squarely into passive communication.
Interesting.
When you hedge, you are prioritizing the avoidance of conflict over the clarity of your message.
Whereas aggressive is just like bulldozing people, disregarding their feelings entirely to get your point across. And passive-aggressive is using sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or the silent treatment to express negativity indirectly.
Precisely. And assertive communication is the gold standard. It means expressing your thoughts, your needs, and your critiques openly and directly, but with fundamental respect for the other person.
Open but respectful.
Right. Assertive communication is actually the only style consistently tied to positive mental health. It fosters mutual understanding without sacrificing your own authority. You don't need the student driver sticker to be polite. You just need to drive the car respectfully.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if our actual words are constantly being hedged or softened, what carries the real weight of our message? The words themselves can only do so much.
And this is where we run into a staggering reality about human perception. When we communicate an idea, a mere 7% of the perceived message comes from the actual verbal content.
Wait, 7%? That's nothing.
It's tiny. 38% comes from your tone of voice, and a massive 55% comes entirely from your body language.
93% nonverbal, that is absolutely wild. It implies that you could have the most brilliant, perfectly structured argument in the world, but if your shoulders are slumped and your voice is shaking, the room isn't going to buy it.
Because the human brain is an efficiency machine. It looks for evolutionary shortcuts to determine who is safe, who is competent, and who is in charge.
It's scanning the physical space we occupy.
Exactly. There are highly specific etiquette rules for projecting power and confidence non-verbally that tap right into those shortcuts. Standing tall with a wide stance, for example, physically claims territory. Maintaining 40 to 60% eye contact signals engagement without tipping into aggression.
And keeping your gestures contained, right? Like if you're wildly flailing your arms around, you look chaotic, you want to keep hand gestures between your waist and your chest. Oh, and my absolute favorite takeaway from the research regarding body language. Pockets are murderers of rapport.
It paints such a vivid picture, doesn't it? When your hands disappear into your pockets, it immediately signals disinterest, boredom, or hidden nervousness to the subconscious minds of everyone watching you. Visible, open hands signal honesty and a willingness to connect.
There's also a really nuanced, frankly frustrating point here about smiling. A warm smile builds trust, which makes sense, but there is a documented smiling double standard. Excessive smiling can actually make women appear less credible in professional arenas.
Yeah, it's a sobering reality of how nonverbal cues are interpreted through the lens of societal bias. In situations where maximizing pure authority is required, say a high-stakes negotiation or a crisis management briefing, minimizing excessive animation and maintaining a calm, contained facial expression projects a higher degree of power.
And this heavy reliance on visual cues of confidence leads us directly into a massive cognitive trap. We are so easily swayed by wide stances and contained expressions that we fall victim to authority bias.
Authority bias is the human tendency to accept information without critical evaluation simply because it comes from a perceived authority figure.
We just take their word for it.
Right. Our brains look at the confident posture, hear the unwavering tone, and decide, well, this person knows what they're doing, so I don't need to double-check their math.
Think about the biotech example from our sources. You have a company trying to decide on the methodology for a new multi-million-dollar trial. You have Dr. Turner, a senior director with a commanding, authoritative presence.
The wide stance, the eye contact.
Yeah. And then you have Lisa, a brilliant junior researcher. Lisa actually has a better, highly researched, evidence-based methodology for the project. But in the pitch meeting, Dr. Turner proposes a fundamentally flawed approach.
And because Dr. Turner has the title, the perfect nonverbals, and the unwavering tone of voice, her proposal sails right through. Her confident delivery completely eclipses the actual objective merits of Lisa's superior idea.
The team just absorbs it.
The entire team absorbs Dr. Turner's words without questioning them because her nonverbal authority tells their brains she must be right.
So wait, if I just stand with a wide stance, keep my hands out of my pockets, and project a calm, contained face, I can basically hack authority bias. I can get an entire room to agree with me, even if my idea is objectively worse than Lisa's.
You can. The mechanics of human perception absolutely allow you to hack the system. But doing so without core competence leads to a severe ethical danger and a catastrophic leadership failure.
Because the packaging doesn't match the product. You're selling a lemon.
Exactly. When a leader's actions, decisions, and ultimate competence don't align with that confident physical posture over time, it deeply erodes workplace trust. It highlights a severe lack of integrity.
You get exposed eventually.
Right. You might win the meeting today using authority bias, but when Dr. Turner's flawed project inevitably fails 6 months from now, the team will remember that she sold them a bad idea with absolute certainty. You lose their trust permanently. True assertive leadership requires the substance to actually back up the stance.
That makes perfect sense. The nonverbals are the delivery system, not the actual product. But let's throw a wrench into this. That confident body language hack, the firm handshake, the direct eye contact, getting straight to the point, that works incredibly well in a New York boardroom. But what happens when that exact same behavior travels across the globe?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we enter what anthropologist Edward T. Hall defined as high context versus low context cultures. And this is where the rules of communication completely invert.
Oh, it's a total cultural minefield.
It really is. If you try to run your New York playbook in the wrong environment, you will crash and burn.
Let's look at low context cultures first. This encompasses the US, Northern Europe. Communication is explicit, direct, and heavily verbal. It's highly individualistic.
Right, and time is strictly regulated. If you have a 9 a.m. meeting, it starts at 9 a.m., and time is money.
And the thinking is inductive, meaning you look at specific data points to reach a general conclusion.
Contrast that completely with high context cultures. Much of Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America.
Yeah.
Communication here is implicit, indirect, and heavily nonverbal. Identity is rooted in the community, not just the individual.
It's much more fluid.
Very fluid with time and highly relationship-based. And thinking is deductive, moving from general principles down to the specifics.
It sounds like low-context communication is like reading a legally binding contract. Absolutely everything is spelled out in the text, and if it's not written down, it doesn't count. But high-context communication is like reading poetry. The real meaning is found in the white space between the words.
That is a brilliant analogy. The meaning is in the atmosphere, the relationship, and the tradition, not just the explicit vocabulary. And it perfectly explains why cross-cultural body language mismatches are so explosive. Let's take the handshake.
Oh, right. In your low-context New York boardroom, a firm, strong handshake proves confidence and trustworthiness.
But in certain African countries, a limp handshake is actually the respectful standard. If you go to Turkey, a firm, crushing handshake is considered intensely rude and aggressive.
Or eye contact. We just established that 40 to 60% eye contact is crucial for maintaining authority. But in many Asian, African, and Latin American cultures, sustained eye contact is considered directly confrontational. Looking away is how you show respect to a boss or an elder.
If you force eye contact in those contexts, you aren't showing confidence. You are essentially challenging them to a fight.
And the physical gestures are even more perilous. The classic OK sign we use in the US, or the Texas Longhorn gesture, those are highly offensive, vulgar insults in places like Brazil, Greece, and parts of the Mediterranean. Or simply showing the soles of your feet when you cross your legs, a deeply offensive act in the Middle East.
Even silence is interpreted completely differently. In the US, a 10-second silence in a meeting feels like an uncomfortable, agonizing void. We immediately rush to fill it with words.
Yeah, it feels like torture.
But in China, silence is utilized intentionally to show agreement and receptiveness. Or in Japan, it can be an expression of femininity. In many cultures, a long, contemplative silence is absolutely required before answering a serious question. If you answer too quickly, it implies you didn't value the question enough to think about it.
So in today's globalized workforce, a leader who doesn't understand these frameworks, who operates strictly by low-context rules in a high-context environment, will accidentally destroy team morale without ever uttering a single offensive word.
Absolutely. They'll just be sitting there, crushing hands and staring aggressively into people's eyes, wondering why no one likes them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Navigating all these micro and macro communication styles, the words, the body language, the cultural context, requires an immense amount of internal drive. It's exactly what makes someone a truly great leader. But what happens when that drive goes into overdrive? When a leader leans too heavily into the very traits that made them successful in the first place.
Well, we enter the paradox of leadership. Organizational psychologists mapping personality traits have revealed something deeply counterintuitive. Research by McCall and Lombardo shows that managerial derailment rarely happens because a leader lacks a skill.
It's the opposite, right?
Yes, they fail when a core strength is overused until it becomes a toxic weakness.
If you track a trait like assertiveness or conscientiousness on a graph alongside performance, using like the Hogan Personality Inventory and the Leadership Versatility Index, it doesn't go up forever in a straight line. It creates a curvilinear relationship.
Right, a curve.
Meaning, as your ambition goes up, your performance goes up, but only to a point. Once a leader hits one standard deviation above the average or on the 80th percentile for a given trait, their performance actually drops off a cliff.
What's fascinating here is the push and pull dynamic behind that drop. Let's look closely at ambition. High ambition makes a leader driven, visionary, and forceful. But when ambition hits that extreme 80th percentile, they're doing too much forceful leadership.
You're sucking up all the oxygen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By dominating the room, they are simultaneously inhibiting the opposing necessary behavior, which is enabling leadership, supporting, listening, and empowering the team. Their incredible strength is actually suffocating everyone else.
But there is an even more dangerous trap hidden in this data. The low score danger. It takes much less extremity on the low end of a personality trait to cause major structural damage to a team.
Yes, the threshold is incredibly sensitive on the low end. For instance, prudence is a trait associated with careful, meticulous operational execution. If a leader has naturally low prudence, they tend to be highly strategic, big-picture thinkers. They hate the weeds.
Right.
But the data shows that a negatively related trait like this crosses into overdoing it at just the 34th percentile.
Because they become so focused on the grand strategic vision that they completely abandon operational reality. They are steering the ship toward the horizon while the hull is actively filling with water.
Precisely. The big-picture thinker derails much faster than the detail-obsessed manager.
So if I take a personality assessment and find out I'm naturally in the 90th percentile for ambition, you're telling me my best trait is actively hurting my team. Am I supposed to fundamentally change my entire personality? Because that sounds, well, impossible.
It is impossible. And thankfully, that is not the goal.
Yeah.
The research clarifies a crucial concept. Behavior change, not personality change, is the primary objective of leadership development.
Tough for you.
You cannot rewire your core psychological makeup. You will always be a highly ambitious person who wants to charge ahead. You don't change who you are.
You just develop the emotional intelligence and self-awareness to turn down the volume on those extreme behaviors.
Exactly. You build systems around yourself. You actively manage how your traits manifest in the room.
We've talked a lot about reining in extreme, forceful leaders, but let's flip the script completely. What about the exact opposite problem? How do we handle the leader or the team member who is chronically, agonizingly indecisive?
Indecision. It is a fascinating psychological state. It is deeply linked to maximization, the exhausting, endless desire to find the absolute perfect option rather than a good enough option.
It's tied to perfectionism.
And fundamentally, to a severe lack of decisional confidence. Indecisive people suffer from informational tunnel vision.
They delay choices. They constantly revisit the exact same data points, just hoping that absolute certainty will magically appear.
Right. They want to absolve themselves of the risk of being wrong.
But there is an incredible study about the power of the group that completely upended how I thought about fixing this. Researchers took a group of highly indecisive individuals and put them into three-person homogeneous groups, meaning they put three chronically indecisive people in a room together and force them to make a choice.
Logically, you would assume that putting three highly indecisive people together would result in absolute catastrophic paralysis.
An infinite loop of hesitation.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Working alone, these individuals had terrible confidence and took forever. But when placed in a group together, their decisional confidence absolutely skyrocketed. It shot up to match the confidence levels of highly decisive people. Wait, so if you put three incredibly indecisive people in a room together, it doesn't result in endless paralysis. The group dynamic actually cures their lack of confidence.
It does. And we have to look at the psychological mechanics behind this transformation. Why did it work? When an indecisive person works alone, their dominant internal goal is getting the correct answer. That triggers their localized perfectionism.
The anxiety of personal failure.
Yes. But the moment you put them in a social group setting, the human brain naturally shifts its dominant goal. The priority shifts from being flawless to working productively. The shared responsibility diffuses personal accountability and anxiety, acting as a natural decision aid.
Social interaction forces them to articulate coherent arguments rather than agonizing internally. It proves that sometimes the solution to a deeply ingrained personal weakness isn't working harder on yourself in isolation, but just changing the environment you make decisions in.
It's a profound realization about human behavior.
It really is. And we have covered massive ground today, from eliminating linguistic hedges and over-apologizing to mastering the silent power of confident body language and that wild 93% rule.
We navigated the invisible rules of high and low context cultures, learning how quickly confident posture turns into an insult across borders.
We learn to dial back our most extreme personality strengths before they derail our careers. And finally, using the power of the group to cure indecision.
It's a powerful reminder to look at the invisible systems operating beneath every interaction.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to ponder long after this deep dive ends. If working in a group completely cures the anxiety of indecisive people just by shifting their focus from being perfect to being productive, what other personal psychological flaws are we desperately trying to fix in isolation when all we really need to do is change the social environment around us? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.